Hey,
Good afternoon.
afternoon. Hopefully you guys are all surviving, doing well.
So far, so good.
All right, all right, all right.
It's a
Cool.
new year, so
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wish I could cycle the year over, get a do-over.
Oh well,
That's all right. Yeah, shit happens.
right. Put a fresh start on today. That's all.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Now, to be honest, like I kind of think that things are getting close to wrapping up here. Like this is the
Well, you know what the old tradition is: buy on Rosh Hashanah and sell on Yom Kippur.
yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Those kind of like the sell in May, go away thing.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's been around for a while.
Yeah. So
So
so yeah,
maybe that's what we saw this morning.
maybe, yeah. I mean, I was a little surprised to see like the strength of the selling right away, and that's kind of what makes me think it's like a small wave forward here before maybe like another high, or like I mentioned the 25, like the 25,000 for the Nasdaq. Just because like I know it's almost like the bears do it all at once, and then they get the selling out of the way, and then let the bulls buy it up for the rest of the day, and then it just repeats.
Well, they certainly did that.
Certainly did that. Certainly did that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that like the speed and strength of the selling this morning was kind of interesting.
Mhm.
I mean there was almost no knife catching going on with that, and I'm also a little surprised that there wasn't any selling like at the bell or after the bell, just because there were so many. There's so much of that like zero DTE options gamma that was sitting there. You would think they would try, so anyways, yeah, let's get rolling here. I'm not going to spend too much time. I always say that, but we'll go in reverse today because the indexes have been pissing me off. So, pardon my French. I get a little punchy when it's like, oh come on. All right. You know what? Actually, I got the VIX pulled up. Let's talk about this real quick. So what Neil had mentioned, I was actually going to bring up today about the VIX kind of steadily creeping up here, while while indexes are also on the move up higher, and with what is it 2% today for the VIX. We also saw 2% here for UVIX, so that means like the next the next contract month here coming up. So it tells me that people are buying protection at least, and getting a little bit more cautious. Anything that you guys have noticed, like with VIX or volatility recently, that might be a good add?
I just want my UVX to go back up a lot.
Oh, what was that, Eric? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, can you not hear me? So I just want my UVX price to go up about 40%, then I'll be happy.
Oh, yeah, you, me both, buddy. Yeah. So the issue with UVIX is it's always got that forward curve, that forward curve sensitivity. But what I think what I did last time here was just showed that if we have, what was it? Hold on one second. So compare this back to the VIX. I mean, I think it's reasonable. I mean, if you think about like what happened like in April, I mean, the VIX shot up an incredible amount. So if we put it up to the day value, you had this this massive increase all the way up here, 240%. Like that's insane. And if that happens to UVIX, you got essentially double that. I mean, it's not exactly one for one, but it's still pretty close. So what we were modeling last time was so let's say we have right at the end of July here, we had this big spike up that was like 47%. Okay, so with just that a couple handfuls of days here, there was a lot of protection that was bought. So during that same time period, you saw here that it just rocketed up here a considerable amount. That's a big point jump right there. So if you just take even a slice of that, and here we go. Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, one second. Let me get back on track. 1 second. and I'm clicking around a lot. I'm sorry. So early September, that's when we just had a tiny little hint of selling. Then we had that, let's see, that move. Yeah, so 35%. Okay. So then we go back here to September. It didn't really move much, but that was sort of like, when those guys were crushing the volatility. But I mean, you can see here that here, let me turn this off of like a, yeah, it looks like it's log. Okay. So if I take off the log chart, most people have entries, kind of stranded at like the 24, 25 kind of mark. But if you take a look at some of these different moves, so let's say you get three big down days. Let's say the VIX jumps up 10%, 10, 12%. You probably get like a test of like the 50-day average here. I mean, it's like some people say, well, I didn't know you could use like, Elliott wave or like fib analysis for, trading volatility. Well, you can. It's just sometimes just got to like, take it as it is. Like you can see a bunch of volume here for UVIX, but we didn't really see a huge jump, but we do see a pretty big floor here. And we also saw the same sort of thing right around here. So, volume analysis works because you got to think that these guys know what they're doing. If you're going to deploy billions of dollars, they at least know what they're doing. So we see another accumulation zone down here. Now, I hope it doesn't take, that much longer, but it kind of looks like there's some price stability now as for like, middle of September on. Like this is a pretty painful decline here, like that 10-point decline from the 20s. But, if we're looking at something like this, like we had this massive move. I mean, that's incredible for this 73 points, right? Everybody would be super happy with that. But even if you just had, let's say you got one day where you get a 30% jump and then you build on that from like a compounding perspective. Let's say you get another, like a 5-point jump or something. I mean, we saw that just the other day, but then it kind of, got faded. That if you see another third day, let's say, markets are down 5, 6, 7% in total. If you get like that, the chart pattern where it's like the three, black nights or whatever it's called, where it's like the 3 down days in a row, you could see a compounding thing like this, where you could see the low 20s pretty quickly. And that's not including like, let's say a potential retrace where you might get, here's like a B wave or wave 2 or something like that. And you can get another jump up depending on the severity of the correction. And, just from prior experience, like you guys know that, the more we see consolidation and just steady pushing up of prices, there's always like an equal or moderately close sort of, correction. And I do think that like, if you start to look at like some of these indexes and how they're behaving, it's clear. Like, I mean, you could see this is like a wave 5, and we're already kind of in that last little piece there. And I'll talk about this in detail in a little bit, but when you zoom out and you look at all this stuff here, if you get even just let's say you get even a 10%er, which goes down to test, or 11-12% to test the 200 day moving average, you still get a bounce here at like, let's say 2200, and that should be plenty in order to exit UVIX. Just from like a daily compounding sort of thing. Like we haven't really seen anything since July, really. So bears have been starved for some sort of win here. But you guys can kind of see that this, as you zoom out, this is a pretty mighty sort of, rally out the bottom here. And, starting to take the shape of like a longer term wave 5, like a 5 wave sort of thing. You can kind of see the wave 2 down here, wave 4 around here. And this kind of seems like it's the last little stab up here for wave 5. I don't think it's quite done yet. I still think that we'll get a little bit more, screwing around here. But for the most part, this does look like a, kind of like a termination point, if you will. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, is it log? Yeah. Okay. So back, at least according to like wave theory, back in April, we had this low, but it also pierced the top of what should have been resistance. So if this was supposed to be like a wave 4, To be honest, like I think it invalidates that. We had 2 days where we had lower prices than that. Even though there was some support, that sort of invalidates that this is like a huge sort of how would I say, like wave 4. So I think in hindsight we'll probably see that this is like just a big B wave, and this is like an irregular pattern, but it's starting to get a little bit higher than that. So that might be an invalid scenario, but it doesn't really matter. It's more of the technicalities, which not a lot of people really care about, except for me. But long story short of it is, I'm starting to notice patterns as we zoom in that are pretty recognizable if you're a chartista or whatever we call ourselves. Let me pull up the current chart here. So to kind of zoom out, this I think what we saw back in like August and September was the developing of this rare sort of corrective pattern called a running flat, where it doesn't have a C leg that terminates below. So like right around here, and that's, it got me, but to be fair, it's a pattern that happens maybe like 8% of the time. So, you didn't get that continuation of a waterfall or really like a deep wave 3. You just got, more bouncing on some of these trend lines. So we did eventually make a new lower low, or sorry, not a lower low, but we tried to make a lower low here and, breach down further. But that was, of course, bought up on some pretty decently high volume. And that, I think, kicked off that wave 3 here. But you can also see within the wave 3 that we do have these little, a pretty clear 5-wave pattern up here. So even though we're seeing, let's say, like the end of a wave 3 and a larger sort of wave 4, the counts here can really be, and I'm sorry, this is kind of cluttered. So the counts here can really be, I guess, a number of things. And I don't want to say like, oh, we're done here. See, look what happens when I say that. But the reality of it is, whether it's an irregular or not doesn't really matter anymore. It's about, like, how do we measure it? How do we, how do we prepare for what's the upside target? What's the downside target? That kind of stuff. So what I think we're really looking at here, and it kind of seems to fit, where, if we have this, if we have another push up here, get this out of the way. So if we have another push up, I think it looks like a pretty clear, like an ABC up here. So that'll get us slightly past that 25,000. And that'll also be that 1.382 extension. So if it does become an irregular, and I'm sorry, before I keep droning on about this, this is the classic irregular sort of pattern. Just kind of, here we go. Does that yellow work? I should probably do white. Contrast is helpful. Does this make sense so far? Is at least like the logic behind it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, typical wave 3 is, like these wave 4s or these sort of irregulars or flat patterns or whatever. It all seems to kind of congregate at the end of the last prior wave 4. So that period, or that point in time, would be right around here. So this white line that I have in the chart is essentially just saying that if we do hit a top here and we do reverse pretty decently hard at this 25,000, then we should see 24,000. I wouldn't say like quickly, but I think we could see probably a week or two of some decent selling, and that would test the 50 again. That might also set it up for another leg higher, but I think that what's coming up now is going to be the critical part, because you can't just keep making these like fifth waves and stuff like that. Like there are like the algorithms that are programmed to trade like this, which are a considerable amount, considering 95% of all shares traded are through algorithms, or trading bots or whatever, that they're all programmed with this sort of stuff. And even though they do like dollar cost averaging or whatever, you're starting to see a little bit more violence with the bears, if that makes sense. Like today, you can kind of see, big strong downward candle this morning on high volume. We saw the same thing, back, right at the end of September. You know, we saw another big stab down yesterday, really. So we're starting to see these, like, you know, the volume sort of pick up after it had been trending, you know, on the low side here. And if I go back to, let's say the daily, and I zoom out here, you can kind of see that the volume itself, sorry, I know I'm jumping around a lot. The volume itself has been kind of trending, you know, a little bit low. But now you can kind of see that it's getting a little bit more spiky and a little bit more prominent on down days. So whoever's buying this dip is buying it with you know, with conviction. But you know, to me at least, this looks like a really, really clear sort of. It kind of looks like a wave 3, I guess you could say. And let me draw it out so it makes sense. So even without all this crap in here, let me just do like a ground up sort of thing. And this is kind of how I like look at it early in the mornings before I jump online. Or, you know, just looking at other charts in general. I try to pick out what looks very obvious first. So this looks like an obvious sort of, you know, like a 5-wave structure. But then even if I didn't have any of the other labels or whatever, I still think that you could see another larger sort of 5-wave structure here, which you might get like a higher high, for example. And I'll make this a different color. So hopefully this makes sense. It's sort of like I don't want to say top is in, you know, and be totally wrong again. So the theory behind this is that, you know, if you can pick out some easier waves, start there, and then kind of dial it back and you know, see if it sort of fits with the rest of the narrative. And what this is showing me right here is that, you know, it's just a stone's throw away from this 25,000, and I think they're going to get it. I think it's, you know, you've been seeing nothing but buying. Like, you would have seen some bears step in yesterday, but it was just like straight up yesterday. You know, it was very contradictory to what we had been seeing in like some of the options volume, you know, some of the other stuff. So right now it's just, you know, buy the dip until you get to the point where, you know, you start to see some big sellers coming in. So trail stops could be a good way to play it. I mean, personally for me, it's like I would probably sit out just because, you know, it's at least from like a 5-wave sort of thing, unless you see like a breakout beyond something like 25,000. So I guess the long story short, here's what I'm saying is that it does look like in a regular pattern here, which could also double as a, you know, like a 5th wave, or, you know, it doesn't really matter what the label counts are. It just matters that there are several possibilities that could get you to 25,000. And that's really the important thing to take away. Now, from a retracement perspective, like I said before, you know, like if this ends up being like a longer term wave 4, you know, that'll take us into, you know, end of October, let's say, you know, we could have a revisit down here to this, you know, 24,000 level, which would be nice and it'd be relief, but it still wouldn't be, you know, the the best thing. I'd like to see more selling, of course. But that could also set you up for a like a Santa rally into the end of the year, where you just get this total mania. That's where I think you would probably see like the blow off top. So I guess overall what I'm thinking is maybe a little bit more upside now, probably till tomorrow to kind of close out the pattern to set up next week for maybe like a sell, and maybe the week after. And then once you get to mid-October, you know, maybe you find a bottom, and then, or maybe, you know, late stage October, and then you get November, December, which are more controlled sort of, you know, like a more sort of controlled wave 5. And then I do think that if the same thing happened then that happened in like 2022 or 2023, whatever year it was, where January 2nd was like the day that everything started to sell, then it sold for 9 months. So I kind of think that, you know, we are coming close to it here, and if we do get some sort of pullback, it's a buyable dip, unless you see a lot of the selling that pushes through these major levels. And that's where I feel like a lot of bulls would get trapped, is that a lot of them buy in size when they're down here, and if the level gets sold beyond, you will probably only have like one more chance to get out of those trades. You know, for example, if it didn't turn into a wave 5 and you saw it kind of dip down below with a strong wave 3 or something, you might see some sort of, you know, pop back up here, but it probably wouldn't hit the breakout point and still have a lot of trap buyers there. But that would be the point, like right there, to exit those long trades if you went in size, if that makes sense. So, that stuff won't happen all in a day, but it's just something to keep an eye out for. So this is sort of what I'm thinking overall for equities is going to happen, is that just a little bit more creep up, and then you'll have some decent October seasonality here for some selling, and then that'll set up like the rest of the year for another rip up. Or if we continue to have bad economic data, it's going to matter eventually, and you could see some different patterns emerge. So any questions about that, or Gaines, you're crazy?
What was the high on the index this morning?
This morning?
Yeah, because the futures went up to 25,180.
Yeah. High was 24,965.
Okay.
Rounded.
So pretty close.
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking they're going to get it. So.
Yeah, it was the same thing with gold. It was like,
yeah, it was real close.
Are they going to get to 4,000 or not?
Yeah. And that's actually something I was going to bring up here too. But before I move on to gold, the rest of the stuff here, do you guys have any other questions about this?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Eric.
Just waiting for Godot,
Yep. Waiting for something. All right. So let's pull up the rest of this crap here. All right. So I'll just flash a quick S&P here. It's still kind of dancing around this 600 and 660 level, 6,700, that kind of thing. I think they'll probably want to push it up to like 6,800. That would be, again, another nice round number, but we've been clicking away, 100 points time here, every week or so. So I think that this is a very close, sort of, like a melt up sort of scenario, but you don't necessarily need to have a straight line up, like a meme stock. I do think that this would classify as like a melt up. So, in hindsight, of course, everything's 2020, but I do think that if we don't see any sort of, pullback with any sort of size, then I do think that we'll see, we'll see a lot more ground covered faster. So that's dangerous for shorts. So definitely not a let's short it kind of week. Maybe not even next week. We'll see. But if you're not trapped and you've made better choices, you could probably make some decent money if you were long, or at least add some long hedges with some trail stops or something like that. All right, so taking a quick look at the Dow. Dow usually, I feel like it either leads or follows. And over the last couple of weeks, we've really just seen nothing but grind. So I cannot advise. Well, don't give advice, but I certainly cannot, wrap my head around entering a trade for the Dow or small cap, something like that. It just kind of seems like they've just lost momentum. They're just in it. They're just grinding away, punching the clock, I guess you could say. And this one, for example, this looks like a double top. This one it's called like a Adam and Eve sort of double top, where one side's a little higher than the other, and you can see a corresponding C leg that's maybe like 5% lower than the low put in April. So for the yield, this guy, so longer term, I'm actually kind of getting some sort of sense here that we might see like a lower sort of yield, maybe like 3.9 or something, but I don't know if that's going to happen right now. I kind of think that there needs to be a little bit more of a concern about inflation here. We got to see some more inflationary prints with some of the data, and maybe we'll get this like C leg up here to get up to closer around, let's say 4.27, 4.38, that kind of thing, or even higher to maybe test the 200 DMA. But you need to start seeing some poor economic data and also inflation with that. So sorry, this chart is actually a little cluttered. I was working on it today, but we might get a floor, let's say around maybe like 4.072. But now that position size has been added, I'm pretty confident that we'll see we could see something like jump up here like a sea leg. But I would be, pretty interested in taking profits on that pretty quickly if it did. And the yield just gets a little bit tricky to trade, especially when you're at tops, because like the covariance with equities can kind of flip flop. But also as a heads up, there was a buy signal at the weekly level. So if you follow like the market indicators, there was just again a buy symbol for the yield. And this looks like a classic sort of bull flag. So I'd say from like probability standpoint, the best patterns I've seen are bull flags, bear flags, pennants, both bull and bear pennants, and like ending diagonals or symmetrical triangles, those kind of things, where you kind of see that channeling or just some back and forth action where you could draw some trend lines. That seems to be at least like a very good indicator of what's going to happen next. All right, let's take a look at gold. So gold, if you can look, you see the volume here. We saw a ton of volume today, and you saw some sort of retracement. But to me, it kind of seems like metals need to chill out a little bit. So it kind of seems like we already kind of got this here, but I'm actually kind of thinking that we might see another higher high yet. And I know this is not like conventional sort of trend analysis, but I kind of feel like this is going to end up shaping into like an ending diagonal or something, where you might see like this move up kind of like that to tag this final bull target, like this 3907, I think it is. Even though it says 5 on the chart, it's like where that comes from is this wave 3. Typically for wave 3s, you will have an extension. With equities, with metals, sometimes it's really like the wave 5s. But what this is looking like is a wave 3 extension. So here, what we can see is the first level of extension is to get past this 1.618, but the second level is this 2.618. Now, not very often, but sometimes we do see an extension for the third leg, or for the wave 3, all the way up to this 4.236 level. And I don't think I've ever seen it go beyond that level. So that's why I'm kind of thinking that there's a lot of sell volume that's popped up here. So if it didn't sell down at this 2.618, then likely it's going up to this 4.236. So I think I was at least mentioning something about that when I was consolidating down here about like, I think they're going to see something blast up here. But I do think that it's getting really close to a top, at least for now. And I think that you'll probably see. Before I say anything like that, what I think is going to be different this sort of cycle, like once we do take some sort of bear turn, I think that you'll probably see, usually like metals and yields are inverse. I think probably what you'll see is something weird where you'll see metals going up at the same time as like yields, and that's just, I think it's because it's like inflation concerns. But it hasn't happened yet, but we did kind of see some of that, a while back. So long story short is, metals like gold and silver, silver's also got the same exact thing, only silver hit it already. And you can see here, it just bounced right off that. So that, 47.96, just kaboom, like a lot of volume. So I think that, if you actually wanted to try to take a short or something, maybe SLV would be really good. So again, I don't know what's going to happen here, like if we've actually hit like a top, but I think that, maybe tomorrow morning, if silver's a little bit higher, I think that might be a good short. Like if you wanted to take like a put spread or something like that, longer dated with like 10 points or whatever, that might be a pretty decent trade that you can close up early if it hits for you. Any questions about metals?
Nope.
All right. So let's talk about oil here. I kind of thought maybe it might make another low here. I've been chatting, or we've been talking about it for a couple of days, but now it's starting to make this like, this sort of like descending wedge sort of pattern, but it's a bullish pattern. So you see a lot of this consolidation and coiling here, I think at minimum, you could see something like a real short, like ABC, to kind of pop back up like this. But I do think that now it's going to be like here, sorry. So if you count triangle waves, again, triangles are my favorite because they're usually really easy to forecast. So I think you'll see something like this, where you might have a little bit low over low. You probably hit that 60 zone. And if you guys remember that, a lot of like the U.S. producers need the price of oil per barrel needs to be above like 61, 62, that kind of thing to be profitable. So you'll see the administration get a lot of pressure to, stop like stepping on the price of oil, or, like you think about it, where Russia and other oil exports and gas, exports and stuff, they're getting crushed right now by Ukraine. So there's supply shortages there, but it doesn't seem like we have supply shortages here. And when you look at the, you look at the price of a barrel of oil, I think it's being artificially stepped on in order to create that sort of like, that's that sort of like sanction that you don't have to declare. I guess if that makes sense, because a lot of these countries, peg their budgets on, like a certain price per barrel of oil. I think at one point for Russia, they had like $140 a barrel as like their budgeted amount for like their entire country. I think Venezuela had like 80 or something like that. So I guess to kind of summarize for oil here, I think that this is a bullish pattern. But I think that what they're trying to do here is, I think they're trying to squeeze some of the oil producing countries like, Iran and Russia here, while they're also having shortages and things like that. So I think that you'll see a spike here, but there's a real possibility we could see oil just kind of putter around between 60 and 70 for quite some time, which would be boring. But, I still think that even though missed out on a little bit of cash here and had to give some more back closing out shorts yesterday, I'm still at least happy to see that this pattern is starting to resolve itself, where it might finally find a bottom here, because this has been just too much back and forth for, like an 8 to 9 point range here, or percent range, for, a month and a half. It's just super boring. So, all right. Kind of what I'm thinking with oil, natural gas here, natural gas, it did have a lot of volume, like a lot of buy volume, but it also hit that 200 daily moving average. In this specific case, I actually don't think it's going to stop there. I think it's just going to punch right through, because there's been so much of, this stepping on the price of oil here, and also just natural gas. And I think that you'll see, it was just, let's just say it was very poor September for the energy trade. And like, I just mentioned some of the reasons why, at least I think, we have, some of this. I think it's like a manufactured thing where, we're stepping on the price there somehow, some way, who knows? But anyways, I think gas here will continue up, just because, it's winter, it's coming up soon. And we've had lower gas prices pretty much all summer. All the way from March, we had a little bit of a pop up here, but we also got a buy signal back in August. So now we have a full month behind here. We've had what looks like a very clean wave 2, and now that's why I'm thinking that right now we're seeing maybe like a wave 4 of 3 or something like that. But I guess I would summarize and say that the gas price here, I think, is going to cruise up a little bit higher. Probably have a little bit more volatility, but I do think that this is also a very bullish pattern. This kind of like descending wedge here. So and it already kind of broke out. So we might actually be seeing, the back test today, or maybe tomorrow, that kind of thing. And then possibly, at the beginning of next week, once we see some gas stock changes and stuff like that, then maybe we might see some more bullish positioning on that. Does that make sense? Anybody have anything else to add for like logic, or if something doesn't sound right?
Well, I went in on this trade because,
okay.
I would have done the futures, but it's impossible with the contango going on.
It's tough.
So I bought the boil. I have some UNG, and I bought a couple options on the boil.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully,
I think January's coming.
January's coming. Yep. hopefully you make a mint on it, Don.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
And the same thing with the crude. I think, I'm just looking at the crude the same as I looked at the silver a couple of years ago. That just it's in a accumulation area.
Yeah.
And just keep adding into the position, and eventually it's going to break to the upside.
Yeah, I agree. And you also see here too that sorry, I got to clean up these charts, but that like 59, 95, that 60 zone, that's right at that 0.618 retracement. So if this is going to be some sort of crazy bullish run, then that's the place where I would expect it to materialize, or at least to have like a decent amount of buying.
And if it breaks below there, it's just going to be like a spring, because the production's going to dry up. Nobody's going to want to.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's going to want to. Nobody's going to want to drill for $53 a barrel. So especially with stagflation going on here.
Actually, I'm looking at. I didn't buy it yet, but at some point, I would take a position in RIG.
Oh, RIG. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the guys in the channel, Brian, he has a position with RIG as well. He asked me on that on occasion. So if you want to chart update or something, don't let me forget. Post it in discussion or something, and I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I was in it a couple years ago and sold it, and now it's back down again. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, hopefully it's correct. But yeah, I think that the energy trade here could be pretty nice if if you're able to hold position and don't get shaken out. I think that'll be pretty
historically, nice. The drillers have been similar to like the VIX chart, where they go into these craters and then they explode to the upside.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So that's pretty much it for energy. SOX is doing weird stuff. I don't want to, but it kind of looks like it's got that symmetrical wave 5. Well, I was making a joke today, but if you look at like the hour chart, I do think that it's kind of getting close to an end here. Like for example, if I pull up Nvidia, this one now looks like a pretty clear 5 wave, where you got this last sort of thing here. And typically if you have an extended 3rd wave, which they both have had, then you'll get like an equal wave 1 and 5. So, it's, I guess, again, symmetry is important for longer term charts. And if we pull this up here, you can see it's getting real close. So, 191, 185, whatever, it's pretty close. So that's kind of what I am thinking here, that to kind of tie it back in to tie it back into the chart we've been talking about before, which is not that. There we go. Which is kind of why I think that we'll just see this little bit of a jump up, and then kind of a bit of a melt, but not that much, and then either set us up for a wave 5, or we will see something like this where it'll stop and make a head and shoulders, and then we'll actually get like a real correction. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is is going to be the thing here. But all ships rise and fall with the tide, right? So you have to consider that here. So now looking at now looking at things like Nvidia, all my years of doing this, looking at charts at these 5 wave patterns, you just don't see something like this like a lot, where just the 5th wave reaches up to the moon. So yes, there's a risk of a blow off top, but I think everybody knows that nobody wants that. Yes, you can make a lot of money and great, but like after it's done, like market's done, then you have like 2 or 3 years of a bear market, and bear markets suck. So nobody wants to do that. All right, so Bitcoin, a bit of a surprise to the upside, but I kind of think what's going to happen here is you get this ABC sort of pattern up, and it still qualifies as a wave 2, just a high retracement. I think it'll probably top out around like 122,500, and then I think we'll get a sell off there, which according to kind of what we're looking at, might actually happen tomorrow. We'll see, or maybe it'll happen over the weekend. But then next week, I think we should be able to see some selling. Tesla. This one to me says it's done.
That was a great move today.
Great move today. Yeah. Great move.
Classic.
So, so now you guys can kind of see why I added some TSLQ today, just because you've got this huge sort of sell-off. You know, and like, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the news, but like their sales are 33% down or something like that in the EU or whatever it is. It just wasn't good. So
their sales were, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, they had that, people got the rebates in August, and the rebates ended August. So there was like a buying spree in America.
Yeah.
And it's over.
Yeah.
So there was like, so I think it spiked up this morning on the news of that. And then people said, wait a minute.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Like everybody bought, they're not going to buy in a September, October.
Right.
So the next quarter is going to look ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, since we've had such a huge run up here, you know, the measurements are pretty clear. And longer term, this really falls into this flat pattern. So this point, you know, 941, you know, like for example, you could see this C leg here reach, I mean, you know, down to this point of control almost, where just a little bit low, or just a little bit lower than we had back in April. But you know, that the 3-unit TSLQ position isn't really all that underwater, or like not that bad. You know, a lot of that was accumulated like right around here. So I mean, if we get to move down to like 400 even, like that would be that position will be profitable. But with all this selling going on here, I still think that that's the start. So you'll probably see, you know, maybe you'll see a little bit of like a jump up here to the test the last, you know, the last major, you know, last major level, and then you'll probably see like a, you know, one of these sort of things. So, and I'm gonna hold because, you know, yeah, you know, it's been slim pickings here for profits lately, and it's like, you know, been getting punched in the gut for long enough where it's like, no, I'm gonna stick it to them. I'm gonna try to, you know, see myself late at night staring at the screen with the glasses on, you know.
And they've been running the stock up. They've been running the stock up because of the robotics, and everything. And that's, you know, that's not coming tomorrow.
Right, exactly. That's like a future value kind of thing. And your forward PE can only reflect so much future value before people start calling BS on it. Okay, so sorry, what was that, John? Go ahead.
I said he's been talking about the taxis for 10 years, and they're just starting now.
All right. So one last thing here, I just wanted to cover MSTR. So I think, you know, I mean, obviously this is one of those things that looks like it's just following Bitcoin at this point. There has been a decent amount of accumulation, but there's also been, you know, some pretty high side buying here. And I think this is really just the bulls trying to get out of those positions. Even though we did have like a buy signal down here, I think we caught, you know, half of that move, right, with MSTU, thinking that it might, you know, be like B wave or something like that. It ends up, you know, retracing a lot higher, of course. But now I think that in this side of the chart, I think what we ended up seeing was now we saw like the completion of that wave 3, or, you know, might turn out to be a C leg in hindsight or something. But now I think we're either in like a larger wave 4, or you know, something that we might see some more consolidation around this range. I briefly considered, I briefly considered adding to the SMST position, and then I realized that would be a terrible idea. So really what I'd like to see here is I would like to see this hit these moving averages. Like, I mean, they've dropped every time they've hit them the last 3 times. And then I want to see this do like a 5 wave down, like a capitulation sort of move. And that would be, you know, if we did hit that final target down there, that would be a great place to exit in profit for SMST. And if this doesn't happen, I still want to hedge up using like MSTU and trade the hedge pair. But, you know, I'm kind of out of money at the moment. I just want to, you know, be able to exit some positions. But I felt like instead of buying something like MSTU as a hedge, you know, going along with rates or like adding a unit to Boyle, you know, like the trades I made today, I think were, you know, like it's a better use of capital right now as opposed to hedging, you know, like hedging what we had. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's kind of what I'm thinking here. So other than that, what else? I guess what else did you guys want to ask? I got a couple minutes yet. If you guys have any specific questions, happy to answer.
IONQ. I sold out. I made some good trades last week. I went the downside hedge, IONZ. Unfortunately, only with about 10% of the principal I had in IONQ, but it's 2 times leverage, so call it 20%.
Okay.
And with the trade alert, and are we expecting it? I assume to hit a new high here, or do we want to just look for that mid-70s again and run for the hills?
So it's a good question. Let me pull this up. So we're talking to a couple of friends of mine here. So the chart looks a little cluttered here, but kind of what I'm thinking is, you might see like a higher high yet, like an extension up here. Let me hold on. I got this other thing I was working on. Okay, so kind of zooming out here. Here's the thought process behind it. You've got this ABC sort of move and the measured move from the pivot points here. And I just tightened up these fibs today because some trolls were giving me hell online for it. But anyway, so now I got my levels all dialed in here. So we saw right at where it was forecast, like right around that 60 level. Then it got bought. I'd say right now it kind of looks like, let's see here, like we might see, okay, yeah, so it's at the 0.618. I mean, I think it's possible that it could reverse here and head a little bit lower. Because if we measured this here, so right now it looks like a 5 wave, but these stocks have been on a tear. So I'm kind of thinking that it might, like we might be wrong, and it might do something like this where it heads down a little bit more, like the 50s, like 50 and a half. Because if you look at charts like RGTI, they're just making like new highs here, but it's starting to kind of top out. The volume's getting really big. So if you also kind of look at the other charts here, it's kind of like kind of feels like QUBT topped already. And I'll use the same adage as before. It's like all ships rise and fall at the tide. So you can kind of see that the possibility of testing this trend line is real again. And again, if all the quantums fall, or sorry, like if 1 or 2 fall, like most will, then if you look at something like QBTS, it kind of already looks like it made a new high. So maybe what you're seeing here for IonQ is maybe what you're seeing is that pivot point where you get that B wave down. So as much as I'd like to hope for like another 5th wave up here, I just don't know if it's gonna work out. I think we might have actually already seen it right here, like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So then that would make a case for just taking another quick short profit. So I'm not overriding my position. So
yeah. So right here, I mean, you have a number of options. Like you could sell some calls or something if you had some shares, or you could take the loot and scoot and reset lower, or wait until there's a larger correction and get back in. I do think that a lot of the quantum stocks will retreat. If like equities retreat in a big way. But I guess it'll be disappointing if I wake up tomorrow morning and it's down 6%, or like 10% or something, when it's like, just looking at this, like, it was a great place to take profits. But yeah, you could add some puts, to protect your initial position if you don't want to, because some people have like tax considerations too, like, hey, I don't want to take profits because, I don't want to pay capital gains tax or whatever. But if you, in an IRA doesn't matter, or sorry, like a 401k account kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of look at these like, these guys are all making new highs, and it kind of looks like these, like 5th waves have all kind of permeated up here, where those, these high, these high lines are. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that answers your question. I don't want to explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that does it for me here. I gotta hit the road here, pick up these children. But yeah, let me know if there's any other questions. Send me a DM or something like that. And thanks for joining today. Hope you guys had some fun. Some
Well,
value.
thank you. Yeah.
All right, guys, take it easy.